Hey everybody, this is Dieter School of Martial Science. So today I wanted to talk to you guys. We got cut off a little bit there on the last video, but that's why Krav Maga is a good system because after in every class you spar at the end, and that quickly gets you the tactical proficiency you need. Um, that's it for Yellow Zone Fighting. Lesson 9 is Intro to Herbology, Poisons, and Explosives. Now, we touched on this a little bit in one of the Yellow Zone Fighting videos where we talked about the, poisoning a blade. Um, I'm not going to get too in depth on poisons in this video. And the reason behind that, quite frankly, is I don't want you trying it at home. And I also don't want my channel shut down, quite frankly. Um, what you should know about poisons. There are two types of poisons: plant-based and chemical-based. By that I mean it's inorganic compounds that you're using to create some sort of toxin. Inside of the poisons category, we have three classes. You have neurotoxins. You have uh, uh, ones that target respiration, that prevent you from breathing. And then you have ones that target the organs and cause them to shut down through targeting the blood, um, or causing the body to attack itself, or causing the body to swell, or um, uh, inhibiting you know, uh, the brain. Um, Plant-based are the easiest to utilize manufacture. You've got wolf's bane, death cap mushroom, belladonna. Um, you have, the cyanide plants like, rhubarb, apple seeds. Um, you got your um, hallucinogens like your, opioid, your poppy plants. All of these could be weaponized and used as toxins. Um, um, you've got nightshade. Um, as far as other organic type poisons, you have your venoms from animals that are, for whatever reason, secrete poisonous venoms. And that doesn't really need any explanation. Those are your snakes, some frogs, um, etc., etc. Um, some lizards. Okay. Some spiders. Um, Man-made. Okay, so there you have your chloride-based poisons. They use chlorine as the active ingredient. You've got your ammoniums. You got your sodium uh, uh, based ones, salt based ones. Um, each one has its merits. Each one is useful. Um, you got your fluoride based ones, your dioxide based ones, uh, your nitrate based ones. Um, Once you understand the base and the proper amounts, you can compound the poison. Um, Now, then you have to find either it's something that can be that has a thick enough mixture that it can be smeared on. Or if it's a thin enough mixture, you can put the blade in and then you can coat it with something that dissolves. Um, or you can infuse it into oil and use the oil as the carrier, which serves two purposes there because it prevents your knife or blade from rusting, your arrow, and then B, it also carries the toxin. Um, and that's all we're really going to touch on in this introductory video. Sign up for class if you want to learn more. Uh, Herbology. Okay. In medicine, there are two forms. Again, plant-based, animal-derived, um, and then your man-made compounds. Now, herbology is useful for the warrior because, for example, putting mugwort or blood thistle in your wound can slow a bleed and prevent infection. Willow bark too. Um, Birch bark as well. Okay. So understanding your plants that can be used for healing purposes will it also help you survive a violent encounter. Um, St. John's wort. Knowing herbology allows you to know what's good to eat, which we'll touch on in lesson 10. Um, that can also be an advantage. It's a long subject, and you have to have pictures and diagrams so you can understand what part of the plants are good for what, and etc. etc. Coincidentally, a lot of plants that are poisonous, like belladonna or poppies, can also be used medicinally in small enough quantities. Uh, into explosives. Well, explosives are obviously useful for the warrior because you've got Emuline 33, you've got TNT, you've got Semtex, you have C4, you have nitrate based explosives, you have uh, a lot of uses there. You've got cordite, black powder. All of these can be used for the warrior for different things too. Um, not just the obvious like blowing something up. They can also be used for entry tactics, dynamic entry. Um, they can be used as countermeasures against pursuit, or a secure perimeter against intrusion. Um, there's a lot of different recipes for things. You got your 1, 2, 3, right? 1 part saltpeter, 2 parts sulfur, 3 parts charcoal, i.e., black powder. You've got your, you know, uh, gypsum plaster with magnesium and aluminum that can be set off as a low grade Semtex plastic explosive. Um, you've got your uh, two-stage explosives like oh god, I can't remember the name of it now. Um, Night. It'll come to me. Um, so um, in your explosives, you have 4 types, right? You have your powder, your putty, and your liquid. Um, uh, years ago when I was learning demolitions work, they taught us P for plenty. Always use a little more than you think you're gonna need. Another thing they taught us was that all bombs are made up of three components, right? You have your primary explosive source called your base. You have your ignition device known as your starter, and you have your control device, otherwise known as your trigger, that allows you to control when the ignition device sets off the base. Um, a simple, easy technique is to actually use something that can be set off by a spark, otherwise known as electric debt. Your Sumtax, your C4 are all useful that way. Um, uh, as is your nitroglycerin. You can even set off black powder or cordite based explosives with electric debt. And easy one that we use is the timed pipe bomb, right? You put your explosive base in there, either black powder or cordite, um, and then you take yourself a cheap watch that has an alarm. You go into the speaker and you free one end or you splice into it, so that way you have a positive and a ground wire, and you put those into your explosive base, and then you set the alarm so that when the alarm goes off, it sends the signal to the speaker, and the speaker going off is what sends the electric signal down your cord, down to your spliced wire, that allows to set off the base. It gives you a timed explosive. It's primitive. It can't really be interrupted by anything because, sort of like a Faraday cage or something, because there's no radio signal to intercept or no wires that you can cut that control the trigger mechanism from the explosive. Okay, whereas if you per se run a line and you have some sort of charge or plunger like in the old Wile Coyote things, where you this and then the line goes and you see and there's dynamite, boom, right? um, that can you can interrupt that line and prevent the explosive from going off. So it's a pretty easy, cheap way to make a timed explosive. Uh, Years ago, the IRA used to set their explosives to go off 2 minutes after they were triggered. This is known as your delayed trigger or your delayed ignition. And that means that either you delay the ignition setting off the base or you delay the trigger setting off the ignition. And the reason they would do that is so that when the SAS troopers or the black and tans would raid a house, most of the team would already be inside when the explosive was triggered. Um, this is a useful tactic for the modern day warrior. Um, like I said, explosives can be used to secure a building. Um, uh, Explosives, obviously, 9 times out of 10 are going to be illegal. Um, you're not going to be able to use self defense as your justification. Um, that's just the cold hard truth, with the exception of, per se, something like a black egg, where you take a hard boiled egg and you fill it with an explosive base and a small wick. That could arguably be used as self defense because you're under assault and you throw it like you do a hand grenade. And boom, it's a small charge too, so it's no threat to public safety, but it discourages assault. Short of something like that, you're probably not going to be able to justify the usage. However, the modern day warrior should have all knowledge and weapons at their disposal. Um, because you never know. Cold hard truth. You just never know when you might need something. So having the knowledge and the skill to utilize it is always a good thing, you know, because at the end of the day, it can't hurt to be prepared for any eventuality. So that's the basic intro to herbology, poisons, and explosives. Um, as always, I stress constant vigilance and, kind of use at your own risk. I don't recommend you make explosives in your kitchen at home per se, at least not without proper guidance and training. I know a lot of old EOD guys or, miners, demolition guys that are missing fingers and hands and stuff. It is always risky. Um, you should never store explosive ordnance close to where you live or where there's flame, chance of a spark like a power line falling, that sort of thing. So, use discretion, be safe, and get yourself qualified instruction before you go to make these things. In lesson 10, we're going to introduce you to field work, seer, archery, and alternative weapons that you can use, like the pike or spear, axe or hammer. Um, Basically, field weapons. And as always, stay safe out there, constant vigilance, and protect each other at all times.